You're listening to One Decision. I'm Julia McFarlane. Each week, we look at the consequential decisions made that shape our world. We speak to guests from all walks of life, in government, in the firing line, in the public eye, and ask them why they made the choices that they did. This week, we speak to Ambassador Daniel Foote, the former Special Envoy to Haiti. And we ask him why he resigned in protest from the Biden administration last year, attacking the State Department, the United States government, and its legacy in one of the most troubled countries on earth. Haiti, by all accounts, is in freefall. Last July, the president was gunned down in his bedroom in an assassination still under investigation. The United States is increasingly taking the lead in bringing the perpetrators to justice, amid mounting questions over the Haitian government's ability and even willingness to uncover the truth. Suspicion looms large over the current acting prime minister, who is accused of having links to one of the main suspects, with whom he's maintained close contact even after the killing. The assassination plunged the fragile country into turmoil, its institutions crumbling, its capital city ravaged by gangs, its economy in tatters, and its infrastructure battered after another devastating earthquake that came a month later in August 2021. Despite being a former French colony, the US has long had strategic interests in Haiti. Its location in the Caribbean places it on a superhighway of the arms trafficking and drugs trade from Southern and Latin America and beyond to the United States. Haitians have long accused the US of being behind some of the country's multiple coups and interfering in Haiti's democratic process. After the turbulent summer of 2021 following the president's assassination and another devastating earthquake, scores of Haitians fleeing the crisis arrived on the US southern border in Texas last year. Scenes of mounted border police attempting to encircle Haitian migrants on foot, like cattle on the banks of the Rio Grande, became emblematic of the accusation that US policy towards Haiti and its people had become dehumanizing. One of the most devastating attacks of US policy over Haiti came from inside the House, when former Special Envoy Ambassador Daniel Foote penned his furious resignation letter last September. He began by telling us where he was when he heard the news that the president was dead.
I came down in the morning, and my son, who went to sixth grade in Port-au-Prince, told me first thing, he was like, "Oh my God, they assassinated Jovenel Moise." I was shocked. I mean, the only thing, or one of the African bombings on our embassies, 9/11, the death of Ambassador Chris Stevens in Benghazi are the only things during my career that kind of affected me like this. It was really hit me hard. And as unstable as the world sees Haiti, this is the first time since 1915 that they've had a head of state assassinated. So it was quite a blow to the Haitian people. I mean, they have been through a ton, right? And we can talk about the reasons behind that. But I have never seen the Haitian people so angry, so hurt, so violated. And it's not because necessarily they liked Jovenel Moise. His popularity was actually quite low. It's just the fact that foreigners can come into their country, break into the president's bedroom and kill him there at the foot of his bed. Imagine how they feel. So it really was a huge event.
And it's an extraordinary story still, because we still don't know who it was who ordered the assassination of the president.
That's one of the fascinating things of what's happened with this assassination. And I guess I would start by saying one of the issues in Haiti throughout history is other countries have made Haitian sovereignty and their ability to determine their own future impossible to date. And this Moise assassination is another example. He was killed in the wee hours of July 7th. And it broke the Constitution because it just didn't envision the current situation, which is no quorum in Parliament and And no, one of the successors constitutionally had died of COVID, and there was no constitutional successor. But the acting prime minister at the time, Claude Joseph, stepped forward and said, I'm in charge. Everybody accepted that for 10 days. And then on July 17th, 18th, I believe, 11 days later, the core group, which is made up of the US, the UN, the Brits, the Spanish, EU, the French, Canada, they issued a statement saying they were now going to work with Ariel Henry as the prime minister, which really caught the Haitian people by surprise and frankly didn't make them very happy because they do not really take kindly to foreigners continuing to meddle in their affairs. And it turns out that there are explicit phone records. Ariel Henry talked to the chief suspect as one of the intellectual authors who's still on the run 12 times between the month before the assassination and several hours after, including twice afterwards for 7 minutes. And the press reported that this suspect, Joseph Badiou, visited Ariel Henry while he was acting prime minister. So it's put the country, which was already in political crisis, even into a more entrenched and difficult situation.
Let's talk about Ariel Henry, the man who has taken control and has assumed the acting presidency and is now acting prime minister as well. He is not a man who ever had your support, was he?
Not necessarily. I wouldn't say that. I did not support him. He was certainly put in the position in an exceptionally illegitimate way, but I like to think I gave the guy a chance. As a person, he was pleasant. He's a neurosurgeon, so he's a smart individual. I didn't find him to be terribly charismatic or dynamic. And I don't think the Haitian people have seen any evidence of dynamic leadership or leadership period in the 6 months that he's been in charge. And I'd also like to say he's not the acting president in anybody's mind but his own. He's the de facto prime minister, I think, is the best way to describe it.
De facto prime minister. Okay, fine. He is a 71-year-old neurosurgeon, as you say, and his background as a health official, aside from the fact that he's been in and out of government all these years, was what led to him serving on the country's COVID-19 task force, as it were. So he already had one foot in the government, working on Haiti's COVID response when this assassination took place. The fact that he was on the phone to the Haitian justice official who has been implicated in the assassination, the fact that he was on the phone to him in the hours after the killing, I mean, as someone who has met him and talked to him, what do you make of that? Do you think it is possible that Ariel Henry had a role in the assassination of Moise?
Would it be possible? Sure. It's Haiti. Absolutely. Anything's possible. The phone records themselves don't prove that Ariel Henry played a role. But the fact that he came out and answered the question about this once, and he said something to the effect that, I got a lot of phone calls that night and I don't remember. And one of them was 7 minutes long, or the combination of those calls was 7 minutes long. How does he not remember it? So he hasn't answered the question, and the Haitian investigation has gone nowhere. And I would surmise that that's because of political will.